everyone, welcome back to QSR Nation, your go-to source for food service marketing and business strategies for success.
Everybody, welcome back to QSR Nation. Today we have Josh, Grant, and Beth coming from the PFS Brands National Headquarters in Holtzston, Missouri to talk about food service marketing and business strategies for success. Today, Tony is a little under the weather. I don't think it's like the Rona, but he's just not feeling well today, so he's out today.
He's being safe.
Yeah, we'll try to carry on without him.
Yeah.
But today we're really excited. We have Lance Graulich with Ion Franchising here joining us on the line, so welcome, Lance.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, everyone. Sorry Tony is not here, but the best of the bunch has joined us, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I hope he's listening.
Yeah, I know. I really hope so as well.
Lance, we heard you started out on Wall Street and somehow managed to end up in the world of franchising. So do you just want to give a little story about your background and how you got to where you are?
Absolutely. So once again, thanks for having me. I grew up in New York, so Dad was on Wall Street, but I'm going to back the story up a couple of feet, so to speak, or a couple of years. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Both of my grandfathers were incredibly entrepreneurial. And one of them, I barely understood anything he ever said. He was a Polish immigrant that was very difficult to understand and built a chain of supermarkets throughout Brooklyn and Queens for a period of about almost 35 years.
Wow.
So growing up entrepreneurial, the question always becomes nature versus nurture. Are entrepreneurs born that way, or did their environment, make them the way they are today? And in my case, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, watching my grandfathers and then watching my dad work with my grandfathers, and especially one grandfather in the grocery business. And as I grew up, I realized Dad was on Wall Street. Dad was a partner in the largest over-the-counter trading house on Wall Street way back when. So I thought, I have an economics sort of brain, a finance brain. I'm going to follow Dad into his business. And as I got older and was coming through high school and then college, I started realizing that I needed a little more people in my life, so to speak. I needed to be around people. I didn't want to be in an office in New York City in the concrete jungle for the rest of my life. And, after doing it just out of college and throughout high school, I realized, I'm going to look for greener pastures. And just then, my uncle called me and simply said, I have an opportunity with my best friend, who I now have always called my pseudo-uncle, my adopted uncle, through my uncle. And he was the largest franchisee of TGI Fridays.
Wow.
And he's the one that lured me in 1989. I was about a year out of college and said, come live with me in Scottsdale, Arizona, and help me build this. At the time, he had just bought 4 TGI Fridays restaurants. He made his money in tech before most people even knew about tech, if you can imagine that. When phones were analog and they went digital a long time ago. He made a lot of money. So he wanted to build $1 billion restaurant company, and that's when I joined him. And he lured me there, and guess what? I started off as a host at TGI Fridays in Arizona.
From Wall Street,
Can you imagine?
From Wall Street to a host, right?
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, I was fast-tracked, got in the management training program, which was absolutely incredible in those days. Fridays was incredible. And we don't have enough time to go through, what happened to TGI Fridays. But I was there 5 years. I helped them with everything. In the beginning, obviously, I was useless because I was getting my feet wet. I did work in restaurants and bars throughout college and had a tremendous experience. Did get my economics degree, but I was brand new to the franchise world. But, I'd like to say after 5 years, I really got my fast-tracked MBA in working in this environment. So here I am today. So
That's awesome.
I'll let you guys take over from here.
That's a really good story, though. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth.
So I know you got started then so TGI Fridays was your first experience in the world QSRs and franchises and all that. And as you moved along in your career, did you get to work with any others? And if so, what has been your favorite franchise brand you've worked with to this point?
Well, I've worked with plenty. I mean, remember Kenny Rogers Roasters?
Oh.
It was around within the Boston market days. And anyway, I was in the chicken business quite a few times. Look, I knew because I was going to be an entrepreneur, I had to find my way, and I kept taking job after job in the industry to really perfect my craft, if you will. And I ended up as a franchisee. Well, let me back up. Before I give you the big reveal and all this thing. I ended up at Fatburger Corporation. You know Fatburger?
I think I've heard of that.
Fatburger's a legendary brand on the West Coast.
Okay.
In-N-Out started in 1948. Fatburger started in 1952.
Okay.
And Fatburger, when I joined them, there was a new ownership team. Magic Johnson was a partner. David Spade, the actor, and Janet Jackson. Those were a few of them. And their manager was the one that was the common thread that got them to invest in Fatburger, and I was the head of operations there. I'd been a food and beverage director at casinos in Las Vegas. I started up a big casino, but after all of that, I said, how am I going to do my own thing? I want equity. I want to be the boss.
Yeah.
And a family friend called one day and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity at Krispy Kreme." I said, well, Krispy Kreme, I heard of it, but I don't know much about it. And this was like 20 years ago now or so. And Krispy Kreme was we were the second franchisee of Krispy Kreme in the United States. In Nevada, we had the state of Nevada and Utah. And again, that's a deep story, but, through my skills and my, experience, I guess I attracted people, the right opportunities, and certainly the wrong opportunities and the wrong partners, which we'll get to. But needless to say, Krispy Kreme was an incredible experience. I made a lot of money. I had a nice piece of the action, and I helped build that from virtually nothing to $25 million in revenue across 2 states, and that was a blast. Later, I ended up being a Wingstop franchisee. I did Wingstop before most people even knew about Wingstop. And, Wingstop's average unit volume in the day I joined them was 600,000, which was not exciting. And today they're a powerhouse brand. But I became president of the Franchise Advisory Council, elected by my peers. I'd like to say I'm in the top 1% of all franchisees between Krispy Kreme and Wingstop, and I have a different sort of set of guiding principles that helps me achieve success in franchising, and then through all those things, I parlayed my skills into franchise development and really helping young emerging brands achieve success like Krispy Kreme and Wingstop, not only in the operations side, but growing through attracting and retaining the right franchisees. And today I represent more franchise brands than anybody in the United States. About 170, 580 restaurant brands, and the balance is everything else, so to speak.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Those are some good brands.
Yeah.
I will say, so Krispy Kreme holds a close place in my heart because back in the day I was we're in Jeff City, Missouri. Here we're about 3 hours from Kansas City, and I was a Royals fan and Cardinals country here. But we used to go up to Kansas City for Royals games, and they had a promotion with Krispy Kreme that if the Royals had 12 hits in a baseball game, that's quite the feat for Royals back in the early 2000s.
Or today.
And it never failed. It seemed like every time we would go, we would hit the right night when they'd have like a big night, and they would have 12 hits. And then you could go redeem your ticket for a free dozen of Krispy Kreme donuts, and they were so good. There was even one time we went up the next day back to Kansas City. It was a summer trip, but we went back up the next day just to get 12 Krispy Kreme donuts. It was
That's a
pretty awesome.
fascinating
That's
story.
very wonderful. Grant is very passionate about food in general, but especially donuts and cookies.
You intertwine sweets and sports. It's an
You'll be happy to know. I created a burger concept in Vegas, and after I created that very successful burger concept and sold it, I then got approached by somebody to create a donut shop in Vegas, and that was a brand called Pink Box Donuts, which has now become famous in Vegas. And I created that. That was the first official gourmet donut shop in Vegas. And then from there, recently I got approached, as my non-compete expired, I got approached by a group, a Food Network star who had won various baking competitions, to create another donut concept in Vegas. So I can't get away from the sweets, guys. I don't know what it is.
I don't blame you.
Well, I'm a fan of of all of the baking championship shows. So if you just want to let me test them out, I would be more than happy to help you on that one.
Well, you have to come to Vegas. You have to not be afraid to fly during these crazy times we're in.
I'll suck it up.
We'll help you out.
I'll make that sacrifice for the team if it's for donuts. So it's good. Well, okay. So I have a question for you. So what are some of the reasons that you would rather buy a franchise today versus starting your own business?
Well, that's an easy one. In the franchise world, depending on whether you're getting involved with an emerging brand, which is, typically under 10 locations, or a much larger brand, either way, there's some semblance of a proven system. There's some sort of brand awareness, even if it might just simply be local or regional awareness. There's going to be an established training program for franchisees. There's going to be ongoing support and mentoring. There's certainly some sort of buying power or vendor relationships. Believe it or not, when you sell, you can exit much more easily and cleanly, if that's a word, in the franchise world. Franchisors are responsible for doing research and development, providing updates to the brand, whether it's, standard operating procedures or new menu items and what have you. Certainly established marketing and advertising and PR support as well. So off the top of my head, those are some of the reasons you would absolutely buy a franchise versus flying by the seat of your pants, even if you have a good business plan in starting your own concept. It's still an unknown, and many things go wrong when nobody's ever heard your name before.
Right. Just all the support that franchises can provide is pretty invaluable, I guess is what you're trying to say.
Exactly. And not to mention that a good new prospective franchisee, he or she goes in, we hope, at least the people that I work with, go in with their eyes open. And if they're not paying attention to certain things, I say, hey, look over here. Check this out. I had a nurse that I spoke to yesterday that I've been talking to for months that's looking at these hot wellness brands that are basically IV infusion type brands, and she likes one in particular of the three that I have. And I said to her, I said, look, I'm a little nervous because this brand that you like that I showed you is growing way too fast, and I don't think the support is at the level that it should be for all their new franchisees. I think they're getting a little overwhelmed, and I don't want you to be caught behind that wave, if you will. Also in franchising, there's a whole step called validation where prospective franchisees have an opportunity where, hey, Beth, you're in the final stages. Here's a list of franchisees. I need you to call 5 franchisees from this list and ask them about their experience with this particular brand. And all good brands ensure that a prospective franchisee are calling existing franchisees to hear how their experience is. And it's kind of a good fit, as any two-way street would be. Does Beth see herself as one of those those new franchisees based on her conversation? Does she see herself in the people that she's talking to, or are these people just not like she is? And should she just look at another brand? So there's definitely an amazing system in picking the right franchise.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never thought about putting that sort of research into it. Yeah, but getting some input from other people that have actually been with the franchise is definitely good advice for someone that's considering it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, a franchise can help you kind of go through some turmoil, some turbulent times. In 2020, we've seen a ton of that with COVID-19, obviously. Many locations are forced to shut down. Are you seeing any new opportunities for restaurateurs out there in terms of, new government incentive programs or just anything in general that can help them as they get started?
Well, the reality is there's been a lot of independent restaurants that have gotten hurt, certainly some franchises. In most cases, as you guys are probably aware, QSR and anything with a drive-through, anything with a major amount of takeout. So if a business, like a Wingstop as an example, was unscathed going through the pandemic because they were set up for success, whether they knew a pandemic was coming or not, they already did 50% of their business from takeout or delivery or what have you. So when the pandemic hit, it wasn't much of a change. They just did even more business takeout and delivery, and their customers that would dine in are now no longer doing that. And so look, yes, unfortunately, it's quite sad. There's a lot of independent restaurants that have gotten hurt. They didn't have the support of a franchise structure. Franchise brands, many of them joined together, called their attorney, called their CPAs, and said, how do we help our franchisees? I hear about this PPP money. I hear about this economic, impact or disaster relief fund that's available. And I have quite a few brands that rallied around their franchisees and got them all money to help them, where sadly independents were left out in the cold to fend for themselves. So the reality is, who got hurt through 2020 in the restaurant business were the big box players that were paying, a lot of money in rent, a lot of square footage, and, let's see what the government does next. We have an election coming up, but I'm still not giving up hope that restaurants might get some additional bailout funds coming up. Can't promise that. But, new opportunities are anybody that's looking at technology. Those are the new opportunities. How do you help those restaurants continue to increase their revenue and decrease expenses? And technology continues to help whether it's getting with delivery aggregators. As much as I don't like them and I don't like the nice chunk of their business that they take from you, but look, you got to work within your physical plant at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
You can't just add a drive-through where there wasn't necessarily a drive-through. It doesn't really happen. So, but I do think, look, in the franchise world, restaurants are always popular in franchising, and that's still the case. People are just buying these smaller restaurant concepts, the typical fast casual restaurants, or something that has a drive-through.
Yep,
I have quite a few franchises that you never heard of that are doing incredible business right now because they're set up for success through the pandemic. I could call it luck, call it strategy, whatever you wish. But restaurants are certainly not dead by no stretch. Still good things coming.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and especially with 2020, this is going to be the way of the future. People are not going to turn back and not want to have these convenient options anymore, especially when it comes to touchless items. So, this is something that even if you are looking to open up a franchise or start your own business just in general, you have to keep all this stuff in mind because that is the way of society now. We've had a taste of it, and now we want to make sure that we're keeping that kind of options available.
That's absolutely true, Beth. And look, the experience that every family or couple or whoever going out to dinner is not going to be gone forever. I don't know about you guys, but, I'm in Las Vegas and my family, we're still going out to eat. Sadly, most of us had the virus already, so we've gotten over it quickly. Thankfully, we're all healthy. And but, we got to go out. We want to support our local restaurants. We want to get out and have some fun. And sure, we're socially distant. We're, separated by an empty table between us. We're wearing our masks, coming and going. Kind of feel like the alcohol that I drink at happy hour helps me. I don't know. That's what I think of it.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I know some of these trends are, of course, going to hang on, but I, for one, can't wait to get back to normal and being able to go out and grab a drink, grab dinner with friends or family or whatever. That's something, like you said, it's not going to go away. And I can't wait till it comes back to the real normal.
Yeah.
How come you never invite us to dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because...
Well, any time, guys. Hey, let me add one thing. While we're talking about technology, I do quite a bit of consulting for private equity groups on the restaurant sector, and one of the things that came up before the pandemic, we were talking about Shake Shack. And while I love the Shake Shack brand, and I am a former New Yorker and a fan of Danny Meyer that created Shake Shack, they were like Starbucks. If you guys remember, Starbucks in the early days made a conscious decision that they wanted to be a destination. They didn't want to be a convenience in the early days of Starbucks. They didn't want to have drive-thrus. They wanted everybody to come inside of Starbucks to experience the service, the smile of the barista that called out your name on the cup, usually wrong, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Nobody would, But nevertheless, that was their choice. Similar, and then eventually they realized, as they were especially publicly traded, that they needed more revenue, and why not be a convenience and open up drive-thrus and drive sales through that drive-thru window. So Shake Shack, in my opinion, while they're growing and we're doing fantastic prior to the pandemic, they made a decision prior to the pandemic. They were also going to be a destination. People would come inside. You would have the experience. You'd have the nice dining rooms. They weren't the hard plastic dining rooms like you'd seen fast food joints in the past. They were comfortable. They were, again, great service. But the pandemic hit. Now, one of the conversations prior to the pandemic about Shake Shack was they weren't focused on delivery. They just had done a deal with Grubhub and knocked out all the other delivery concepts. They just were doing that with Grubhub, period. They weren't doing what a lot of other brands would do by getting involved in others. So I think they've learned a valuable lesson that they need to adapt to thrive in scenarios where we are today. You're going to have to embrace some sort of delivery, whether you're doing it yourself, and focus on it, because clearly Shake Shack is not getting their bite of the apple, if you will, by getting, 40% of their business through takeout and delivery. I mean, maybe now they are because of where we are, but they weren't prior to it. So just an example for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is actually a great segue to my next question, which we've kind of already hit on a little bit with like drive-thrus, but my question is, what would you say are the most popular franchise categories available today? And it could be, we talked about drive-thrus, or like maybe, types of products that are, I guess, pandemic-proof, kind of like pizza, because pizza is already built for delivery and built on that. So is there any other franchise categories you think that are going to evolve in the next year or so?
Well, let's cover it. Let's talk about food first, like you just said, and that's what you guys love to talk about. Little Caesars. Have you guys been to a Little Caesars lately and have you seen the pizza portal they created? Genius, absolute genius.
They're doing like it's like the lockbox, isn't it? Almost. Okay, yeah.
It is. They have an easy online ordering platform. Very simple online ordering platform. Don't have to talk to anybody, and then you walk into the store. Once again, don't have to talk to anybody. You simply enter your code in their giant pizza portal, and the window opens, and you take your pizza. Amazing that they've gone to such great lengths to understand trends, and that was prior to the pandemic. They were working on it, and they've accomplished it. And there was a line of people the other night just going into the portal. And look, I guess I'm somewhat of a fan of their pizza. I'm a New Yorker, so I like great pizza as well. I think for their money, their pizza is good. But fast casual, the family certainly likes that pizza. But fast casual business, QSR, is hot. It's not going away. It's convenient. So it's a no-brainer. Just went to Popeyes the other day, as a matter of fact, and great, a great fried chicken through the drive-thru. But look, anything in the home repair segment today, whether you want to redo your floors, window coverings, closets, countertops, HVAC, or roof needs repair, anything for your home right now is hot in franchising. Everybody's home still. It seems like everybody's still home. Senior services, home care, essential businesses like automotive franchises. And a lot of these franchises have already, done their technological advancements so they can beat out the mom and pops. The mom and pops can't afford to put in the latest automation that franchise auto shops can. All kinds of home improvement, I mentioned, business to business or business services, excuse me, very hot, B2B with technology, whether it's stuff through Zoom today that they used to do face-to-face. Things to be cautious of today, obviously, retail, gyms. Gyms will be great again at some point, but right now, a little bit tricky. There's still people scared to go to a gym, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
The large format restaurants, office-related stuff, even though commercial cleaning is always hot, it's a question of what's going to happen to offices when this is all over now that so many people are working from home.
Right. Those are all definitely good points about the franchises that are going to see an uptick. One that just popped in my head, one that I noticed last week actually was kind of on the topic of ghost kitchens. And this is associated with like third-party delivery, because I got on the third-party delivery here in Jeff City, Missouri, in this area, got on one of the apps, and I found a ghost kitchen that I didn't even know existed, because they don't actually have a store facing
Absolutely.
Real store, whatever. But I was like, there's a new restaurant in Jeff City, Missouri. I was like, wow. But do you see any of those? Like, is that evolving quite a bit too, or have you had any experience with that?
Absolutely, 100%. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to have a meeting with a gentleman that's doing a lot of that in Las Vegas right now. So I should have mentioned that. Ghost kitchens are incredibly hot. Why? Because you're not dealing with the retail, and you're not paying the full retail rate. Typically, ghost kitchens are sort of hidden from view. In most cases, set up near a freeway access, so you can get anywhere in no time. But you're paying much lower rent. You're paying, essentially warehouse rent versus full rack retail, where maybe a Starbucks would sit. So, and they're hot. And a lot of these ghost kitchens have multiple brands in them. So, you don't even know. You could be seeing a clever advertisement on Facebook or Instagram, and it advertises this amazing-looking food, and it could be the same food, 3 different brands coming out of one kitchen.
Yeah. Yep.
Underneath the freeway somewhere, and a whole bunch of drivers are lined up just to take the yummy food to all of us. So ghost kitchens are very hot. I even have a ghost kitchen franchise.
Interesting.
Just that topic in general is very interesting.
Yeah. We might have to bring you back on here just for ghost kitchens.
It really is a great, unique topic, because when the DoorDashes and the Grubhubs and the Uber Eats of the world popped up and are still going nice and strong, look, they're looking to deliver anything from anywhere, and the ghost kitchen world has arrived. It absolutely has arrived, and there's a lot more to come with that for sure.
So I just have a question. What do you see more evolving with the third-party delivery? Like, you gave us a little bit of your opinions on what your thoughts were of them, but do you see those evolving more with larger franchises, or do you see them going away with franchises maybe offering their own delivery services to try and cut back on some of those fees? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases, all the brands begrudgingly, every brand has had to embrace these delivery aggregators, as I think they're usually called these days. And so I don't see them going away. But like a lot of things that come out, it's kind of like it's a commodity world we live in. When the 65-inch TV first came out, it was really expensive, right? And now it's certainly much cheaper as the next biggest TV has come out. I think in the delivery world, I think the prices or the percentages and the commissions, as they call them, have gotten more competitive. And I think they'll continue to get competitive as things, as more competition comes out, as better technology comes out, Because at the end of the day, the notion of why all these restaurants do delivery and the model is supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be, well, you already have cooks, you already have staff, so to deliver, we're going to take a percentage, so it should be no incremental labor, so it's just food costs for you. That's the plan, is what they lay out to all these businesses.
Right.
The reality is when you're doing so much in delivery, it does take a nice bite from your profitability, especially for brands that don't have a great food cost to begin with. I mean, everybody's squeezing margins, and food costs have gone up dramatically, as we all know. So because of that, you have less and less margin. So I do think some big things are coming in the next 12 months with delivery. I see new competitors on the horizon, and I do see I don't ever see restaurants choosing to do too much of their own delivery. There's an awful lot of liability. Hiring is always difficult. So especially when you're competing with the Grubhubs and the DoorDashes of the world and the Uber Eats of the world.
Right, and that's the thing. It's so competitive in that third-party space. I wonder, it'd be interesting to see if one of them takes the lead. Who will be of them? Which one will be the Google of the third-party deliveries and kind of win that race? So it'd be interesting to see if that happens or if it stays like this, where it's really segmented.
That's exactly right. That's exactly my expectation. Someone really. Right now there's a lot of national players. Some are stronger regionally. Some have different standards where DoorDash, off the top of my head, I don't know if it's changed, but DoorDash certainly has a tighter delivery radius. They're not going to pick up like 10 orders and try to get them all delivered before they get cold. They'll keep a tighter delivery radius and pick up less food. That's a positive for them. So, we're going to see how it all shakes out soon enough.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, so Lance, now we get to the part where we think everyone has a lot more fun because it's, not just business. But we like to talk about the quick 3 questions that we always ask everyone. And so the first question we wanted to ask you is, what is the one marketing or business trend that you think will be important in the upcoming year?
All about technology. So check your technology regardless of what business you're in. And if you're not making things easy for your customer, you are missing the boat.
Right.
Very good point.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. What is there one marketing or business book that you've read recently or are planning to read that you would recommend?
It's an oldie but a goodie, and I was rereading The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. In fact, I have it right next to me. And, it's all about ideas and trends and, products. Basically, it's interesting because when I cracked it open, I completely forgot that he talks about how ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread just like viruses do. and I was like, wow, that's really appropriate that I opened this book again. But that's Malcolm Gladwell. It's really on point for today, and it's just a fantastic book, The Tipping Point.
Awesome. Okay. And then, so what is one piece of advice that you would give someone thinking about starting their own franchise?
My favorite expression, resource up. When you get into a franchise, it's about modeling success. And when you resource up, you get a guy like me who represents more franchise brands than anybody that's been a franchisee. I'm going to guide you right. You pay me nothing. I'm absolutely free. I get paid by the brands. And I can help you whether you're looking for a franchise today or you're looking for a franchise 3 years from now. Some people take the slow road. There's nothing wrong with that. And I can help you with it all.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. No, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And as we kind of wrap things up here, do you want to talk a little more about Ion Franchising and how any listeners can actually reach out to you and get connected with you?
Well, I love talking about Ion Franchising. I'm on Instagram, Facebook as Ion Franchising, my website, ionfranchising.com. So reach out, don't hesitate, and I'm happy to help.
That's awesome. No, we really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us today. It's been a good time.
Well, thank you for having me. We'll have to do a round 2 at some point.
Yeah, we'll
Exactly.
have to.
How do you pronounce your last name one more time for listeners?
Oh, there you go.
Graulich. Growl like a bear, lick like a lollipop. Stuck in your brain forever.
I just had to hear that again. That's all.
Thank you, guys. It's been my pleasure.
This has been a good time.
It has
Beth,
been.
do you want to cover our social channels?
Definitely. So if you're interested in listening to any of our podcasts, you can always visit QSRNationPodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at QSR Nation. And be sure to follow us. And you can check out all of our different videos that we have going up there. Obviously, all of our other previous podcasts. And then we will be launching this one with Lance very shortly.
Yeah. So, Lance, once again, thank you. Hopefully we have Tony in next time we talk to you guys. And for Grant, Beth, Lance, and Josh, we'll talk to you next time.
Be sure to join us again for the next episode of QSR Nation.